The billionaire's daughter was trapped in the mud, and a poor black boy did the unimaginable. Catherine Montgomery felt her heart racing as she watched the scene unfold before her. Her only daughter, Emma, was stuck in that thick mud, and no one around seemed able to do anything. Desperate screams escaped her throat uncontrollably, but her employees just stared at the muddy water flowing faster and faster. It was then that Emma started calling for her mother. The wheelchair was completely stuck, and the 9-year-old girl tried to move, but the more she struggled, the deeper she sank. Catherine shouted orders at her security guards, the driver, anyone who could help. "Somebody do something!" Catherine yelled, her voice choked. "My daughter is right there!" The two security guards exchanged glances. The water was rising quickly, full of mud and debris. One of them stepped forward, but hesitated when he saw the current carrying branches and trash down the flooded street. The other remained still, clearly afraid. "Mr. Richard, for God's sake!" Catherine grabbed the older security guard's arm. "You have children. Imagine if it were your daughter there." Richard looked at Emma, who was crying desperately, the heavy rain falling on her face. He took another step, but the water was already knee-high and the current pushed him back. "Mommy!" Emma stretched her arms toward her mother. "I'm scared." Catherine felt her legs weaken. How had this happened? They were returning from physical therapy like every day. The rain had started suddenly, turning the streets of the Upper East Side into rivers within minutes. The driver had stopped the car because the water was too high, and Emma had insisted she could make it to the sidewalk with her chair. But the mud was much deeper than it appeared. "Mom, help me!" Emma's voice was weaker now, panic giving way to exhaustion. That's when Catherine saw movement out of the corner of her eye. A black boy, who couldn't have been more than 12 years old, came running along the sidewalk. His bare feet slapped the water, splashes wetting his torn pants. He looked at Emma, then at Catherine, and without saying a word, jumped into the mud. "Hey, kid!" Richard shouted. "Get out of there, it's dangerous!" But the boy wasn't listening. He moved through the muddy water with determination, as if he knew every inch of that path. The current pushed him, but he held firm, getting closer to Emma. Catherine stood frozen watching that scene, a poor barefoot boy doing what her well-paid employees hadn't had the courage to do. The boy reached Emma and crouched beside the chair. He said something to her, so quietly that Catherine couldn't hear. Emma stopped crying for a second, looking at him with wide eyes. "You can trust me," the boy said, this time louder. "I'll get you out of here." He slipped his arms under Emma and lifted her with an ease that surprised Catherine. The girl was small for her age, but still. The boy put her on his back, holding her legs firmly. "Hold on to my neck," he instructed, "and don't let go." Emma obeyed, wrapping her arms around the boy's neck. He started walking back, fighting against the current. With every step, Catherine held her breath. The water was at the boy's waist now, and he had to struggle not to be swept away. Then something strange happened. Emma whispered something in the boy's ear, and he stopped for a second. He turned his face slightly to the side as if listening carefully. Then he nodded and kept walking. Catherine was at the edge of the sidewalk, her arms outstretched. Her heart was beating so hard it hurt in her chest. The boy was almost there, just a few more steps. "Almost there," he murmured to Emma. "You're doing great." Finally, he reached the sidewalk. Richard stretched out his arms to help him up, but the boy refused with a shake of his head. He climbed up himself, still carrying Emma, and only then carefully set her down. Catherine ran and hugged her daughter so tightly that Emma let out a small whimper. But the businesswoman couldn't let go. Her whole body trembled, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. My daughter," she repeated, kissing the top of Emma's head. "Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" "I'm fine, Mom," Emma replied, but her eyes weren't on her mother. She was looking at the boy who stood there, completely drenched, breathing heavily. Catherine finally released Emma and looked at the boy. He was thin, very thin. His old clothes clung to his wet body, revealing prominent ribs. His eyes were large and expressive, and at that moment they were fixed on the ground. "Thank you," Catherine said, but the word came out strangely, as if she didn't quite know how to give thanks. You saved my daughter." The boy just nodded, still not looking at her. Catherine opened her purse and took out her wallet. Her hands shook as she pulled out some bills. "Here," she extended the money to him. "Take it. You deserve it." The boy looked at the money, then at Catherine. For a moment, she thought he would take it, but then he shook his head. "No need, ma'am," he said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't do it for money." "But you need to accept it," Catherine insisted, feeling strangely offended by the refusal. "You risked your life. This is the least I can do." "No, thank you," the boy repeated. He looked at Emma one last time and smiled. "I'm glad you're okay." And before Catherine could say anything else, he turned and ran off, disappearing into the rain. Catherine stood there, the money still in her hand, completely confused. Richard and the other security guard also looked in the direction the boy had gone, not understanding. "Mom!" Emma tugged on the sleeve of Catherine's blazer. "I want to see him again." "What?" Catherine put the money back in her purse, still processing what had happened. "The boy. I want to see him again," Emma repeated, and there was something different in her voice, a determination that Catherine wasn't used to hearing. "Emma, honey, we don't even know who he is." Catherine picked up her daughter, signaling for Richard to get another wheelchair from the car. "He must live around here. Maybe we'll find him someday." "But I want to see him now," Emma started to cry. "Please, Mom, he was so nice to me." "Honey, it's not possible now." Catherine tried to calm Emma while Richard brought the spare wheelchair. "We're all wet. You need to take a warm bath and rest. Let's go home." But Emma wouldn't stop crying. The whole way back she sobbed in the back seat of the car, repeating that she wanted to see the boy again. Catherine tried to comfort her, promising they would look for him, but nothing seemed to work. When they arrived at the triplex apartment in the most luxurious building in the area, Emma refused to eat. The housekeeper, Mrs. Wilson, prepared the girl's favorite dish, but she just pushed the food around with her fork without taking a bite. "Emma, you need to eat," Catherine said, seated at the head of the table. "You had a scare today. You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry," Emma murmured. "Your mother is right, little one." Mrs. Wilson put her hand on Emma's shoulder. "At least drink the juice." Emma pushed the glass away. Catherine felt her irritation growing, but took a deep breath. It was no use arguing now, not after everything that had happened. That night, Catherine woke to the sound of crying coming from Emma's room. She got up and went there, finding her daughter sitting on the bed, hugging her pillow. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. "Did you have a nightmare?" "I want to see the boy," Emma said between sobs. "Why did he leave? Why didn't he stay?" Catherine didn't know what to answer. She herself didn't understand why the boy had refused the money and run off like that. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. In the following days, Emma remained sad. She barely ate, barely spoke. Even during her physical therapy sessions, which she normally faced with determination, she seemed to be somewhere else. "Mrs. Montgomery, may I speak with you for a moment?" The physical therapist called Catherine to the corner of the room. "Of course, Dr. Johnson." "I'm worried about Emma," Fernanda said quietly. "She's not cooperating with the exercises. Normally she tries so hard, but this week she's been apathetic. Did something happen?" Catherine told her about the rain incident, about how the boy had saved Emma, and how since then the girl hadn't stopped asking to see him. "I understand," Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "You know, Mrs. Montgomery, for children in Emma's situation, emotional connections are very important. She went through a traumatic moment, and this boy represented safety for her. It's natural that she wants to see him again." "But I don't even know who he is," Catherine said, feeling a pang of guilt. "He appeared, saved my daughter, and left before I could do anything." "Perhaps it's important to find him," Johnson suggested, "for Emma's emotional well-being." Catherine left the clinic with those words echoing in her head. When she got home, she found Emma lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "Emma, come here a moment." Catherine sat next to her daughter. "I need you to tell me something. What did that boy say to you?" Emma turned her face to her mother, her eyes still red from crying so much. "He said I didn't need to be afraid," she replied softly. He said he would protect me, and then I asked if he was the boy who sings in the square. In the square? Catherine wasn't understanding. Which square? The square near Dr. Johnson's clinic, Emma explained. Sometimes when we arrive early, I hear a boy singing. He has a beautiful voice. I always wanted to see who it was, but you never let me go to the square. Catherine felt a tightness in her chest. She had never paid attention to boys singing in the square. In fact, she barely looked at people on the streets. She was always in a hurry, always had her head full of company problems. And did he confirm? Catherine asked. Was it really him? He smiled when I asked, Emma said, and for the first time in days, she smiled too. He said yes, it was him, and that he was happy someone was listening. Catherine fell silent. Suddenly, she felt she needed to find this boy, not just for Emma, but for herself. There was something about his refusal to accept the money, the way he had taken care of Emma, that stirred her in a way she couldn't explain. All right, Catherine decided. Tomorrow we'll look for him. Emma's face lit up for the first time in a week. The next day, Catherine cancelled all her meetings. She, Emma, and Richard left early for the area where the incident had happened. Catherine described the boy to several people, but no one seemed to know who he was. There are many poor children around here, Ma'am, a newspaper vendor said. It's hard to tell who's who. They went to the square near the physical therapy clinic. There was no one singing. Catherine asked an older man selling coconut water. A boy who sings here. The man scratched his head. It must be Jaden. He shows up here from time to time, sings some songs to earn some change. Jaden, Catherine repeated. Finally, a name. Do you know where he lives? Must be over there in the East Side projects. The man pointed into the distance. But I don't know exactly where. That boy is all over the place. Here, at the traffic light, in front of the market. He works a lot. Is he alone? Emma asked. No, little one. He takes care of his younger siblings, the man replied. Their grandmother is sick, so he supports the family. Poor boy, works harder than many adults out there. Catherine felt something strange in her chest. That boy, who couldn't be more than 12 years old, was supporting an entire family. And she had tried to give him money, as if it were charity. They spent the rest of the day searching. Richard asked at several establishments, but no one knew exactly where Jaden lived. When it was getting dark, Catherine decided they needed to go back home. Don't worry, Emma, she said to her daughter, who was visibly disappointed. We'll find him. Tomorrow we'll keep looking. But the next day, Catherine had an emergency meeting she couldn't cancel, and the day after that too. Routine started consuming her time again, and although she thought about Jaden several times a day, she never found the right moment to resume the search. Emma, on the other hand, seemed to be doing a little better. At least she had stopped crying every night. But Catherine noticed that the girl kept looking out the car window whenever they passed by the square, as if hoping to see Jaden there. It was Mrs. Wilson who had the idea. Mrs. Montgomery, why don't you have some food baskets made and leave them at the community? She suggested one day. With a note explaining that it's for the boy Jaden and his siblings. Someone will know who he is and will deliver them. Catherine thought the idea was brilliant. She had 3 huge baskets prepared, full of food, cleaning supplies, and even some new clothes. She wrote a note thanking Jaden for saving Emma and saying that this was just a small token of gratitude. Richard took the baskets to the entrance of the community and gave them to a resident, explaining that they were for the boy, Jaden, who took care of his siblings. The man said he knew the family and would deliver them. Catherine felt good about that. She had finally managed to give back, even if anonymously. Emma was also excited when she found out. But 2 days later, the building's doorman buzzed Catherine's apartment. Mrs. Montgomery, there's a boy down here who says he needs to return something to you. A boy? Catherine was confused. What boy? He says his name is Jaden. Catherine's heart jumped. She told the doorman to let the boy come up and ran to the apartment door, opening it before he even rang the bell. Jaden was there, carrying the 3 baskets. He was wearing the same clothes as always, but clean and pressed. His eyes met Catherine's with an intensity that surprised her. Good afternoon, ma'am, he said politely. I came to return this." "Return?" Catherine couldn't believe it. "But Jaden, this is for you and your siblings. It's a thank you for saving my daughter." "I know, Mum, and I appreciate the intention." Jaden put the baskets on the floor. "But I can't accept it." "Why?" Catherine felt irritation rising. "You need it, right? Your neighbor told me you work hard to support your siblings." "We do need it," Jaden agreed, his voice firm. "But we don't need charity. We need opportunity." He took a piece of paper out of his pocket and handed it to Catherine. It was the note she had written, carefully folded. On the back, in neat handwriting, it said, "We don't need charity, just opportunity." "I don't understand," Catherine said, holding the paper. "You need help. I'm offering help. What's the problem?" "The problem is that food runs out, Ma'am," Jaden explained. "Clothes wear out. The things you sent will last a while, but then they're gone. And then we're back in the same situation. But if you give me a chance to work, to learn something, then I can really change my life." Catherine was speechless. How old was that boy again? 12. He spoke with a wisdom she didn't even see in adults. "Jaden." Emma appeared in the apartment doorway, her eyes shining. "You came." Jaden's face softened when he saw Emma. "Hi, Emma," he said, smiling. "How are you?" "Better now," Emma smiled back. "I really wanted to see you again." "I wanted to too," Jaden said, but then looked back at Catherine. "But I need to go. I have to work." "Wait." Catherine lightly held his arm. "Please come in for a bit. Let's talk." Jaden hesitated, but Emma was already pulling him inside. "Please, Jaden," she begged. "Just for a little while." He finally gave in. Catherine led them to the living room, and Jaden looked around with wide eyes. It was clear he had never been in a place like that before. "Sit," Catherine indicated the sofa. "Would you like something to drink? Water, juice?" "Water, please," Jaden said, sitting on the edge of the sofa as if afraid to dirty it. Mrs. Wilson brought water and also some cookies. Jaden took the glass and drank slowly, politely. "Jaden, I want to understand something." Catherine sat in the armchair opposite. "You said you need an opportunity. What kind of opportunity?" "Any kind, ma'am," Jaden replied. "A steady job, a place where I can learn something. I'm a good learner, I work hard. I just need a chance." "How old are you?" Catherine asked. 12. "And your siblings?" "I have 3. Tyler is 10, Sophia is 8, and Ethan is 6, Jaden said, and there was pride in his voice when he spoke of them. "They all go to school. I make sure they don't miss class." "And you? Don't you study?" Jaden lowered his eyes. "I stopped last year. When my grandmother got sick, someone had to work. I was the oldest." Catherine felt her heart tighten. She looked at Emma, who was beside Jaden, holding his hand. "Mom, can you give Jaden a job?" Emma asked. "He can come here every day." "Emma, it's not that simple," Catherine began, but stopped when she saw the expression on her daughter's face. "Please, Mom," Emma insisted. "He's my friend, and he needs it." Catherine looked at Jaden, who said nothing. He just waited, with that dignity that seemed mismatched for his age. "All right," Catherine finally said. "I'll think of something. But Jaden, you need to promise me one thing. If I give you this opportunity, will you try your hardest?" "Yes, ma'am," Jaden replied immediately. "I promise." "Great," Catherine stood up. "Come back here tomorrow, same time. I'll have a proposal for you." Jaden stood up too, his eyes shining. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much." He said goodbye to Emma with a quick hug and left the apartment. Catherine stood at the door, watching him get into the elevator. When the door closed, she turned and saw Emma smiling, truly smiling, for the first time since the incident. Catherine spent the whole night thinking. What kind of work could she offer a 12-year-old boy? She couldn't just make up a job to help him. It needed to be something real, something that actually added value. That's when she had an idea. She called Dr. Johnson. "Doctor, sorry to call so late," Catherine said when the physical therapist answered, "but I need your opinion on something." She explained the situation, told her about Jaden and his family, about how Emma had connected with him. "You know," Fernanda said thoughtfully. Emma has been struggling with physical therapy lately. She needs motivation. What if Jayden could be present during the sessions? Not as a physical therapist, of course, but as a companion. Someone who encourages her, who makes her feel safe. Do you think that would help? Catherine asked. I think it could make all the difference, Dr. Johnson replied. Emotional connection is fundamental for physical recovery. If his presence motivates Emma, then yes, it could help a lot. Catherine hung up the phone and ran her hand over her face. It was a good idea, but she wasn't sure if Jayden would accept. After all, he had made it clear he didn't want charity. The next day, Jayden arrived punctually. He was wearing the same clothes, but again clean and well kept. Catherine took him to the living room and explained her proposal. I spoke with Emma's physical therapist, she began, and she thinks you could help during the physical therapy sessions. Not by doing the exercises, but by being an emotional support for Emma. She feels safe with you, and that could help her recovery. Jayden listened in silence, processing. And would I be paid for this? He asked. Yes, a fair wage, Catherine said, and you could continue studying. We can adjust the session time so they don't conflict with school. But I'm not enrolled in any school, Jayden reminded. Then we'll enroll you, Catherine said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. If you're going to work for me, you need to be studying too. That's the condition. Jayden stayed silent for a long moment. Catherine could see the thoughts racing behind his eyes. And my brothers? He finally asked. I need to have time to take care of them too. We'll find a way, Catherine promised. Maybe they can come here sometimes. Emma would love to have company. Okay, Jayden said slowly. I accept, but with one condition. What? I want my brothers to also have the chance to study properly, he said, looking directly into Catherine's eyes. I don't want them to go through what I went through. They're smart. They deserve a chance. Catherine felt a lump in her throat. That boy's concern wasn't for himself, but for his brothers. All right, she agreed. I'll see what I can do. And so began a completely new routine for everyone. Jayden started accompanying Emma to the physical therapy sessions 3 times a week. At first, Dr. Johnson wasn't sure how it would work, but it soon became clear that Jayden's presence made all the difference. Emma, who used to complain about the exercises, now did them with determination. Jayden stayed by her side, telling stories, making jokes, distracting her from the pain. He had a natural way with the girl, an endless patience. Come on, Emma, he encouraged. Just one more time. You can do it. It hurts, Emma complained. I know it hurts, Jayden said. But you're strong, stronger than you think. And Emma, wanting to impress Jayden, pushed herself a little harder. Catherine watched it all from the corner of the room. She had spent years taking Emma to the best physical therapists, paying fortunes for treatments, and had never seen her daughter as motivated as now, in the presence of a 12-year-old boy. But not everything was perfect. Catherine's friends started making comments. Catherine, dear, is it true you hired a boy from the projects to take care of your daughter? Victoria asked during a charity lunch. He doesn't take care of her, Catherine corrected. He just accompanies her to physical therapy sessions. Even so, Victoria lowered her voice. Don't you think it's risky, leaving your daughter alone with a boy like that? A boy like what? Catherine felt her irritation grow. You know, Victoria shrugged. Poor. From the community. You never know. Jayden saved my daughter's life, Catherine said, her voice cold. He did what people like you would never have the courage to do. Victoria turned red, but didn't respond. But Catherine could feel the other women's gazes at the table, the discreet whispers. In the following days, she began to notice she was being excluded from events. Victoria didn't invite her to the monthly charity tea. Jennifer didn't call to arrange their weekly dinner. It seemed that suddenly, Catherine had become a pariah in her own social circle. But the last straw was when Charles, her husband, showed up at home in the middle of the week. He usually spent the week in New York taking care of business and only returned to Miami on weekends. Catherine, we need to talk, he said, entering her office without even knocking. Charles, what a surprise. Catherine removed her reading glasses. Did something happen? Yes, something happened. Charles threw his jacket onto the armchair. I got calls from several people telling me you hired some kid from the projects to work here at home. Is that true? His name is Jaden, Catherine replied calmly. And yes, he works here. He accompanies Emma to physical therapy. Have you lost your mind? Charles ran his hand through his hair. Catherine, you don't know where this boy came from. You know nothing about him. And you brought him into our home, near our daughter. I know enough, Catherine said, feeling the anger rise. I know he saved our daughter when you weren't here. I know he works hard to support his siblings. I know he's polite, hard-working, and that Emma has been doing better since he started coming here. That doesn't matter. Charles slammed his hand on the desk. What matters is our reputation. People are talking, Catherine. They're saying you've lost your mind. Let them talk. Catherine stood up. I don't care what these people think. But I care, Charles shouted. Our business depends on these people. Do you think they'll want to do business with us if they think we're crazy? If the price of doing business with these people is abandoning a boy who needs help, then I don't want to do business with them, Catherine replied, surprising herself with her own words. Charles looked at her as if she were a stranger. You've changed, he said, his voice lower now. I don't know what happened to you, but you've changed. Maybe I have changed, Catherine agreed. Or maybe I'm just starting to see things as they really are. Charles picked up his jacket and headed toward the door. I want you to send that boy away, he said without looking back, by the end of the week. No, Catherine said simply. Charles stopped at the door, turned to look at her. What? I said no, Catherine repeated, looking directly at him. Jaden stays. If you have a problem with that, the problem is yours, not mine. Charles stood there for a few more seconds, as if waiting for her to change her mind. When he saw that wasn't going to happen, he left, slamming the door. Catherine sat back in her chair, her hands trembling. She had never stood up to Charles like that. In fact, she barely saw him in recent years. He was always traveling, too busy to spend time with the family. When had their marriage become so empty? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. In the days that followed, Catherine had plenty of time to think. Charles didn't return home, and she didn't try to call him. For the first time in years, she felt free to make her own decisions. Jaden continued coming for the physical therapy sessions, and Catherine began paying more attention to him. She noticed he always carried books in his old backpack, and during breaks between sessions, he read voraciously. What are you reading? Catherine asked one day. A book about the human body. Jaden showed her the cover. I borrowed it from the public library. It's really interesting. Do you like science? Catherine sat beside him. I like it, Jaden said, his eyes shining. Especially about how the body works. It's amazing how everything connects. Have you ever thought about being a doctor? Catherine asked. Jaden laughed, but it was a joyless laugh. People like me don't become doctors, Mrs. Montgomery. We do what we can to survive. But what if you could? Catherine insisted. If you had every opportunity in the world, what would you want to be? Jaden fell silent, looking at the book in his hands. A physical therapist, he finally said. I'd like to help people like Emma, people who need someone to believe in them. Catherine felt something stir inside her. An idea was beginning to form. That night, she made some calls. She spoke with private school principals, with Dr. Johnson, with lawyers. When she finished, it was past midnight, but she had a plan. The next day, she called Jaden for a serious talk. Jaden, I have a proposal for you, she began. But before making this proposal, I need to meet your family. I need to know this is what you really want. My family? Jaden seemed surprised. You want to go to my house? Yes, Catherine said, if that's not a problem for you. It's not a problem, Jaden replied slowly. But my house isn't like here. It's very different. I imagine, Catherine said gently. But I'm not going there to judge. I'm going to meet the people who are important to you. Jaden hesitated but then nodded. Okay, we can go tomorrow afternoon if you want. The next day, Catherine wore simple clothes and asked Richard to drive them to the entrance of the East Side projects. Jaden guided her through the narrow streets, going up the hill. Catherine tried not to show it, but she was nervous. She had never been in a community before. The houses were simple, many of them unfinished with exposed bricks. Children ran through the alleys, playing barefoot. Some people looked at Catherine with curiosity, clearly wondering what a woman like her was doing there. "It's here." Jaden stopped in front of a small house painted light blue. He opened the door and called out, "Grandma, I brought a visitor." An elderly woman appeared at the door. She must have been about 70, her hair completely white and tied in a bun. Though visibly ill, she had lively and intelligent eyes. "Jaden, my boy," she said, and then saw Catherine. "Oh, you brought the lady I saw on television." "Television?" Catherine didn't understand. "You're the owner of the cosmetics company, aren't you?" Jaden's grandmother smiled. "I saw a report about you last week." "Oh, yes," Catherine said, feeling strangely uncomfortable. She rarely thought about how well known she was. "Come in, please." The grandmother moved away from the door. "Sorry for the mess, I wasn't expecting visitors." Catherine entered and was impressed. The house was tiny with only 2 rooms, but it was impeccably clean. There were no luxurious furnishings, just the basics, but everything was well cared for. "Sit, please." The grandmother indicated the old but clean sofa. Catherine sat and looked around. The walls were decorated with children's drawings, clearly made by the kids. There were books stacked in a corner, some so old the covers were falling off, but all well organized. "Jaden told me you wanted to talk with me," the grandmother said, sitting in the rocking chair. "What would it be about?" "About his future," Catherine replied, "and his siblings' future." At that moment, 3 children came running through the door, 2 boys and a girl, all with the same expressive eyes as Jaden. "Grandma, we finished our homework," the oldest of the 3, who must have been Tyler, announced. Then he stopped upon seeing Catherine. "Hi." "Hi," Catherine smiled. "You must be Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan." "How do you know our names?" Sophia asked curiously. "Your brother talked about you," Catherine Montgomery replied. "Are you Emma's mom?" Ethan, the youngest, asked. "Jaden said she's really cool." "Yes, I am," Catherine confirmed. "Kids, go play outside for a bit," the grandmother said. "I need to talk with Mrs. Montgomery." The children obeyed, but not before giving Jaden a hug. Catherine watched the interaction between them, the genuine affection they shared. When they were alone, Jaden's grandmother looked directly at Catherine. "What do you want with my grandson?" she asked bluntly. "I want to give him an opportunity," Catherine replied with equal frankness. "He's smart, hard-working. He deserves more than what life is giving him right now." "And why do you care?" the grandmother asked. "You don't even know us." "Because he saved my daughter," Catherine said, "and because he made me see things I was ignoring. It's not charity, it's justice." The grandmother studied her in silence for a long moment. "My grandson learned early on that character is worth more than money," she finally said. "His mother, my daughter, left us when he was 5. Not by choice, life took her from us. His father never wanted anything to do with the boys. I raised all 4 alone until I got sick. Jaden took on responsibilities no child should have. But I always taught them, we may be poor, but we don't have to be small. We may not have money, but we have dignity." Catherine felt her eyes sting. "I understand," she said, "and I respect that. That's why I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity. Jaden will have to work hard, he'll have to put in the effort, but I'll make sure he has the conditions to do so." "What exactly are you proposing?" the grandmother asked. Catherine took a deep breath and explained her plan. She wanted to enroll Jaden in a private school, where he could have access to a quality education. He would continue working with Emma during physical therapy sessions, getting paid for it. And in the future, when he finished high school, she would pay for physical therapy college for him. "What about the other 3?" the grandmother asked. "They'll have opportunities too," Catherine promised. "I'll help find good schools for them, and I'll make sure they have school supplies, uniforms, everything they need." "And what do you want in return?" the grandmother asked, suspicious. "Nothing," Catherine replied honestly. "I just want them to take advantage of the opportunities, to study, to work hard, to become good people." The grandmother fell silent again. Catherine could see she was weighing the pros and cons. "Jaden," she called. Jayden, who was outside with his siblings, came in. "Yes, Grandma." "Mrs. Montgomery told me about her proposal," the grandmother said. "What do you think?" Jayden looked at Catherine, then at his grandmother. "I think it's an opportunity we can't waste," he said. "But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" the grandmother asked gently. "Scared I won't be good enough," Jayden admitted, lowering his eyes. "Scared of disappointing everyone." The grandmother stood up with difficulty and put her hand on her grandson's face. "My boy, you'll never disappoint me, no matter what happens. But you have to try. You have to take this chance, not for me, but for yourself and for your siblings." Jayden hugged his grandmother, hiding his face in her shoulder. Catherine saw his shoulders shaking and realized he was crying. "I'll work hard," he said, his voice muffled. "I promise I'll work really hard." "I know you will," the grandmother said, stroking his hair. When Jayden pulled away, wiping his tears, he looked at Catherine. "Thank you," he said, "for believing in me." Catherine had to swallow the lump in her throat before answering. "No need to thank me. You deserve this, Jayden, you and your siblings." In the following months, a lot changed. Jayden was enrolled in one of the best private schools in the city. At first, he had difficulties. He had a lot of catching up to do, but he studied night after night, determined to keep up with his classmates. Catherine hired private tutors to help him, and slowly, Jayden began to adapt. His grades started to improve. The teachers were impressed with his dedication. Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan were also enrolled in good schools. Jayden's grandmother managed to have the surgery she needed and began to recover. The family's life was changing, but Jayden never forgot where he came from. He continued visiting the community every week, bringing food, helping the neighbors. He used part of the money he earned to help other families who were struggling. "Jayden, you don't have to do this," Catherine said one day. "You need to save that money for yourself." "I know," Jayden replied, "but I also know what it's like to go hungry, what it's like to not have money for medicine. If I can help, I will help." Catherine realized she had a lot to learn from that boy. The physical therapy sessions with Emma continued to go very well. Jayden had a special way of motivating the girl. He turned exercises into games, created fun challenges. "Let's see who can lift their arm the most times," he would say. "I bet I can beat you." "Bet?" Emma laughed. "You're going to lose." And she would push herself, forgetting the pain, focused only on beating Jayden. Dr. Johnson was impressed with the progress. "Mrs. Montgomery, Emma is progressing faster than I expected," she said one day. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Catherine looked at Jayden, who was helping Emma stretch, making her laugh with some silly joke. "It's not me," Catherine said. "It's him." But not everything was perfect. At Jayden's school, some students treated him poorly because he came from the community. They made jokes, excluded him from conversations. "Hey, project kid," a boy named Connor mocked, "you're only here because Mrs. Montgomery pities you." Jayden clenched his fists, but didn't retort. He knew he couldn't get into trouble, couldn't give them a reason to expel him. But one day the situation got serious. Connor and his friends hid Jayden's materials before an important test. Jayden searched everywhere but couldn't find them. "Teacher, I can't find my materials," Jayden said, worried. "Then you'll have to take the test without them," the teacher replied. "You should be more careful with your things." Connor and his friends snickered. Jayden knew it was them, but he couldn't prove it. The test was very difficult without the books and notebooks to consult. Jayden did the best he could, but he knew he hadn't done well. When the results came out, he had only scored a 6. "Look at that," Connor said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "The scholarship kid got a 6. I bet he's used to low grades from public school." Jayden felt anger rising, but he took a deep breath. He wasn't going to give Connor the pleasure of seeing him lose control, but Emma, who now attended the same school as Jayden, overheard the conversation, and she didn't stay quiet. "Shut up, Connor," she said, approaching in her wheelchair. "Oh, look," Connor laughed. "The cripple came to defend the project kid." "I told you to shut up," Emma repeated, her voice firm. "Jayden is 10 times better than you. You only get good grades because your parents pay for expensive private tutors. Jayden studies on his own and still does well." "That's none of your business," Connor said, but he seemed less confident now. "Yes, it is my business," Emma replied. "Jayden is my friend, and if you keep picking on him, I'll tell the principal that you and your friends stole his materials before the test." "You can't prove that," Connor said, but he was pale. "I don't need to prove it," Emma smiled. "A mother is one of the school's biggest donors. The principal will believe me." Connor and his friends walked away grumbling. Jayden looked at Emma, impressed. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Of course I did," Emma replied. "You'd do the same for me." And Jayden realized yes, he would. Emma had become more than a friend. She was like a sister to him. The months passed and turned into years. Jayden grew not just physically, but mentally too. He became one of the best students in school, always among the top-ranked. Catherine watched everything with pride. It was as if she had gained another son. Charles, her husband, rarely came home now. They hadn't officially divorced, but they lived completely separate lives. And Catherine was fine with that. For the first time in a long time, she felt complete, not because of her husband or money, but because of the purpose she had found. She began using her company and influence to create social programs, not charity but real opportunities, scholarships, job training programs, community daycare centers. "Catherine, you're changing," Mrs. Wilson said one day. "You're happier." "I am," Catherine agreed. "I finally understood that having money means nothing if you don't use it to do good. But then something happened that shook everything. Jayden's grandmother had a relapse. The illness, which seemed under control, came back with full force. Jayden was devastated. He spent every free moment at the hospital holding his grandmother's hand. "Grandma, you're going to be okay," he said, trying to sound confident. "The doctors said you'll be fine." "My boy," the grandmother said, her voice weak. "Don't fool yourself. We know my time is running out." "Don't talk like that," Jayden begged, tears streaming. "Please don't talk like that." Catherine saw Jayden's suffering and felt her own heart break. She called the best doctors, paid for the best treatments, but the illness was too aggressive. Jayden's grandmother needed a complex and expensive surgery. Very expensive. Even with the health insurance Catherine had gotten for the family, the surgery wasn't covered. "How much is it?" Jayden asked the doctor. When he heard the amount, he turned pale. It was more money than he could save in years. "I'll get it," he said, determined. "I don't know how, but I'll get it." He started working anywhere that would take him. Besides his sessions with Emma, he took jobs as a delivery person, grocery store helper, anything. He slept few hours a night, studied into the early morning. Catherine tried to offer help, but Jayden refused. "Mrs. Montgomery, you've already done so much," he said. "This I need to do on my own." "But Jayden, you don't have to do this alone," Catherine argued. "Let me help." "Please," Jayden asked. "I need to do this. I need to prove to myself that I can." Catherine respected his wish, even though it hurt to see Jayden sacrificing so much. Emma, on the other hand, didn't stand by. She had a collection of jewelry her mother had given her over the years, expensive pieces, some passed down through generations in the family. One night Emma asked to talk to Catherine. "Mum, I need to ask you something," she said. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" "I want to sell my jewelry," Emma said, "to help pay for Jayden's grandmother's surgery." Catherine fell silent, surprised. "Emma, that jewelry is yours. It's very valuable. Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Emma replied without hesitation. "That jewelry sits in a box. I don't even wear it. But Jayden's grandmother needs it now. She could live or not, because of money. That's not right, Mom." Catherine looked at her daughter and saw no longer a girl, but a young woman with strong convictions. "You know Jayden won't accept this," Catherine said gently. "Then we don't tell him," Emma replied. "We do it anonymously." "Please, Mom. I need to do this." Catherine felt her eyes fill with tears. She hugged her daughter tightly. "When did you grow up so much?" she murmured. "I think it was the day Jayden carried me through the mud," Emma answered. "He taught me that some things are more important than themselves." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Catherine and Emma discreetly sold the jewelry. With the money, plus the contribution Catherine made, they managed to pay for the entire surgery. The doctor called Jayden saying an anonymous donor had covered the surgery costs. Jayden was shocked. "Who?" he asked. "Who did this?" "I can't say," the doctor replied. The person requested anonymity. Jayden cried with relief. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. The night before the surgery, Jayden went to visit his grandmother in the hospital. She was weak but conscious. "Grandma, you're going to be okay," he said, holding her hand. "I know you will." "Jayden, my dear grandson," the grandmother said, squeezing his hand with the little strength she had. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know I'm proud of you. Very proud." "Don't talk like that," Jayden begged. "You'll come out of this surgery well and live many more years." "I hope so," the grandmother smiled. "But if that's not the case, promise me one thing." "What?" "Promise me you'll keep being who you are," she said. "That you won't let money or success change you. That you'll keep helping people, being kind, being honest." "I promise," Jayden said, tears flowing freely now. The surgery lasted hours. Jayden stayed in the waiting room the entire time, pacing back and forth, unable to stay still. Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan were with him, scared and silent. Catherine and Emma also came to the hospital. They didn't say anything, just stood there, offering silent support. When the doctor finally came out of the operating room, everyone jumped to their feet. "How is she?" Jayden asked anxiously. The doctor smiled tiredly. "The surgery was a success," he said. "She's stable. She'll need lots of rest and care, but the outlook is good." Jayden felt his legs weaken with relief. Tyler caught him, and the four siblings hugged each other, crying with happiness. Catherine and Emma hugged too, smiling through tears. The grandmother's recovery was slow but steady. Weeks passed, and she grew stronger and stronger. Jayden visited her every day, telling her about school, about his sessions with Emma, about his dreams for the future. One day, when the grandmother was much better, she called Jayden for a serious talk. "My grandson, I need to tell you something," she said. "What is it, Grandma?" "I know who paid for the surgery," she said. Jayden immediately became attentive. "Who?" "It was Mrs. Montgomery and Emma," the grandmother said. "Emma sold her jewelry." Jayden was shocked. "How do you know?" "A nurse told me," the grandmother explained. She overheard them talking. Jayden fell silent, processing that information. He didn't know whether to feel grateful or angry. On one hand, they were helping his grandmother. On the other, he had said he wanted to do it alone. "Don't be angry with them," the grandmother said, as if reading his thoughts. "They did it out of love. It wasn't charity. It was love." "I know," Jayden said quietly. I don't know how to repay this." "You repay it by being happy," the grandmother said. "By being successful, by achieving your dreams. That's the best way to say thank you." When Jayden met Catherine and Emma the next day, he hugged them without saying anything. He didn't need to speak. They knew. The years kept passing. Jayden graduated high school as the top student in his class. Catherine was at the graduation ceremony, standing and applauding when he walked onto the stage to receive his diploma. Emma was also graduating, and although she still used her wheelchair most of the time, she had regained much of her mobility. She could stand for short periods and take a few steps with support. "Jayden," she said after the ceremony, "I wouldn't have made it here without you." "Of course you would have," Jayden replied. "You're strong, Emma, you always have been." "But you taught me to believe that," she said. Jayden had started physical therapy school, just as he had always dreamed. Catherine paid for his education as she had promised years before, but Jayden kept working to help with expenses. He studied during the day and worked at night. It was exhausting, but he never complained. He was living his dream. Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan were also doing well. Tyler wanted to be an engineer. Sophia dreamed of becoming a teacher. Ethan wasn't sure yet, but was considering becoming a doctor. Jayden's grandmother was fully recovered now. She had returned to taking care of the house and cooking for her grandchildren. But now she had help. Catherine had hired someone to assist her with the heavier chores. "You didn't have to do that," his grandmother told Catherine. "I know," Catherine replied, "but I wanted to. You've taken care of these kids your whole life. You deserve some rest now." The two women had developed an unlikely friendship. Despite coming from completely different worlds, they understood each other. They shared a love for the same boys. Catherine had completely changed. She no longer cared about high society parties or empty charity dinners. She had found a real purpose. Her company now had several social programs. She employed young people from the community, gave out scholarships, and funded vocational courses. And it wasn't for marketing. It was a genuine commitment. Charles finally filed for divorce. Catherine signed the papers without hesitation. They divided their assets amicably. He kept the businesses. She kept the social programs. "You're making a mistake," Charles said when they signed the final papers. "You're throwing everything away for a bunch of project kids." Catherine looked at him and realized she felt no anger, only pity. "You're the one throwing everything away," she replied. "You have money, but you have nothing that truly matters." Charles left her life, and Catherine realized she didn't miss him. Maybe she never had. Emma was growing up and becoming an incredible young woman. She had decided she wanted to study psychology and work with children who had experienced trauma. "I want to help kids like me," she explained to Catherine. "Kids who need someone to believe in them." Catherine couldn't have been prouder. Time kept passing, and Jaden was approaching his graduation from physical therapy school. He had excelled in college, winning awards for his academic work. "Jaden," Catherine called him one day, "I have a proposal for you." "Another one?" Jaden joked. "The last one changed my entire life." "This one could change many other people's lives," Catherine said. "I want to open a community clinic, free physical therapy for people who can't afford it. And I want you to be the director." Jaden was speechless. "Mrs. Montgomery, I haven't even graduated yet," he said. "But you will soon," Catherine replied. "And when you do, I want you to be part of this project. Not as a favor. You'll work hard and have real responsibilities, but you'll be able to help people the way you were helped." Jaden felt his eyes sting. After all these years, Catherine could still surprise him. "I accept," he said, "on one condition." "What is it?" "The clinic has to be in my community," Jaden said. "Where it all began." Catherine smiled. "It couldn't be anywhere else." The construction of the physical therapy clinic began a few months later. It was a simple but well-equipped building, with modern equipment and qualified professionals. Jaden had been involved in every step of the planning, ensuring that the clinic met the real needs of the community. When the opening day arrived, the entire community was there. People came to thank Catherine, but she always redirected the thanks to Jaden. "He's the real hero here," she would say. "I just provided the tools. He did all the hard work." Jaden was beaming. Seeing his dream come true, being able to help people from his own community, was more than he had ever imagined possible. Jaden's grandmother was in the front row, crying with pride. Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan were beside her, equally moved. "Grandma," Ethan whispered, "Jaden did it." "I always knew he would," his grandmother replied, wiping away tears. "That boy has a heart of gold." Emma was there too, now able to stand for long periods. She had made great progress over the past few years, and although she still used the wheelchair sometimes, she could walk with the help of crutches. "I'm so proud of you," she told Jaden. "I wouldn't have made it here without you," Jaden replied. "You're the one who started all this." "No," Emma shook her head. "You started it when you decided to save me from that mud. Everything that happened after was a result of your kindness." The clinic was an immediate success. People from all over the community and the surrounding areas came seeking treatment. Jaden worked tirelessly, often seeing more patients than he should, just so no one would go without help. Catherine watched everything with satisfaction. She had found her purpose. It was no longer about building a business empire or accumulating wealth. It was about making a difference in people's lives. The years continued to pass. Jaden became a respected physical therapist, known not only for his technical skill, but also for his dedication to his patients. He continued to live in the community, turning down offers to work at fancy private clinics. "My place is here," he always said, "with the people who need me." Tyler graduated as an engineer and got a good job at a large company, but he never forgot where he came from. Part of his salary went toward helping improve the community's infrastructure. Sophia became a teacher, as she had always wanted, and returned to teach at the same public school where she had studied. She wanted to give the children there the same opportunities she had. Ethan started medical school, determined to become the doctor the community needed. Jaden's grandmother was in good health, happy to see her grandchildren fulfilling their dreams. She spent her days taking care of the house, cooking for the family that had grown so much. "Did you see, God?" she sometimes said, looking up at the sky. "You took care of my boys, thank you." Catherine and Emma were closer than ever. Emma had graduated in psychology and opened a practice where she saw children and teenagers, many from underprivileged communities. "Do you realize we've both become social activists?" Emma joked one day. "Is that a problem?" Catherine replied, smiling. "None," Emma said. "Actually, I think that's the best we could be." One day, Emma came home with an announcement that surprised Catherine. "Mom, I'm getting married," she said, her eyes shining. "Married?" Catherine repeated. "To whom?" "To William," Emma replied. "Remember him? I met him in college." Catherine remembered. William was a kind young man studying to be a lawyer. He treated Emma with such affection and respect. "Has he proposed to you?" Catherine asked. "Not officially yet," Emma said. "But we've talked about it, and I wanted to know your opinion first." "My opinion is that you're a grown woman," Catherine said, "capable of making your own decisions. If you love him and he makes you happy, then you have my blessing." "Thank you, Mom." Emma hugged her. The news of Emma's marriage got everyone excited. The preparations began, and Emma had clear ideas about how she wanted the ceremony to be. "I want it to be simple," she said. "Nothing too extravagant. Just family and close friends." "Are you sure?" Catherine asked. "You can have the wedding of your dreams, however you want it." "This is the wedding of my dreams," Emma replied. "Simple, with the people I love." One day, Emma called Jaden to talk. "Jaden, I need to ask you something very important," she said. "Of course, Emma. What is it?" "At my wedding, traditionally the one who would walk the bride down the aisle would be the father," Emma began. "But my father was never really present. He never cared, but you always have. Since that day in the mud, you've always been by my side." Jaden started to realize where she was going with this. "Emma, I want you to walk me down the aisle," Emma said, tears already starting to fall. "You saved me that day, but you kept saving me every day after. You're the most important person in my life, besides my mum. It would be an honor if you accepted." Jaden was completely moved. He wiped his own tears before answering. "The honor would be all mine," he said, his voice choked up. "I would be very happy to do that." Emma hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. For stepping into that mud, for teaching me to believe in myself, for being my friend when I needed it most." "No need to thank me," Jaden said. "You changed my life too, Emma. If it weren't for you and your mum, I don't know where I'd be today." The wedding day arrived. It was a sunny afternoon, and the ceremony would be in the garden of a house that Catherine had rented especially for the occasion. It wasn't luxurious, but it was beautiful. Simple flowers decorated the place. Wooden chairs were arranged in rows. There were only about 50 guests, all special people to Emma. Jaden was nervous. He was wearing a suit that Catherine had insisted on buying for him. It wasn't very elaborate, but it was elegant. "Are you okay?" Catherine asked, seeing him adjust his tie for the 10th time. "I'm nervous," Jaden admitted. "I'm afraid I'll trip or do something wrong." "You won't do anything wrong," Catherine said gently. "Just be yourself. That's all Emma wants." The music started to play. The guests stood up. Jaden went to where Emma was waiting. She looked beautiful. The dress was simple, white, without too much shine or excessive lace. But she shone from within. Her smile lit up the entire garden, and she was standing. No wheelchair, no crutches, just with a little help from Jaden. "Can you do it?" he asked softly. "With you by my side, I can do anything," she replied. They began to walk slowly down the aisle. William's father was playing the guitar. a soft and moving song. Every step Emma took was firm, full of determination. Catherine was crying in the front row. Jaden's grandmother was too. Practically everyone present had tears in their eyes. When they reached the altar, William reached out his hand to Emma. Jaden carefully handed her over, but before that he hugged her. "Be happy," he whispered in her ear. "I already am," she replied. The ceremony was beautiful and moving. When it was time for the vows, Emma surprised everyone. "William, I love you," she began, "and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. But before I make my vows to you, I need to say a few things to the people who brought me here." She looked at Catherine. "Mum, thank you for never giving up on me. For giving me everything I needed, but mostly for teaching me the value of helping others. You've become an incredible person, and I hope to be half the woman you are." Catherine was openly sobbing now. Then Emma looked at Jaden. "Jaden, when you carried me through that mud, you didn't just save my body, you saved my soul. You taught me that no matter where we come from or what we've been through, we can always choose to be kind. We can always choose to help. I was a spoiled, scared girl who couldn't see beyond my own difficulties. You showed me there's a whole world out there, full of incredible people, strong people, worthy people. You taught me the true meaning of character." She paused, wiping away tears. "In a world that constantly tries to tell us our worth lies in how much money we have, what school we attended, what neighborhood we live in. You taught me our worth lies in how we treat people. And for that I'm eternally grateful." Jaden's face was completely wet with tears. He nodded at Emma, unable to speak. Emma turned back to William, and they concluded the ceremony. When they were declared husband and wife, applause echoed through the garden. The party that followed was joyful and relaxed. There was no showing off, just love and happiness. People danced, laughed, shared stories. At one point, Catherine and Jaden's grandmother were sitting together, watching the young people dance. "You know," the grandmother said, "when all this started, I was afraid. Afraid you would change my grandson, make him forget who he was." "And did we?" Catherine asked. "You did," the grandmother answered, and Catherine felt her heart tighten. "But for the better. You gave him opportunities, but he remained himself. He remained the kind, hard-working boy I raised. And you," she looked at Catherine, "you've changed too. How so?" "When I first saw you, you seemed like an empty woman," the grandmother said with her characteristic frankness. "Rich, powerful, but empty. Now you have light in your eyes. You have purpose." Catherine laughed through tears. "It's true," she admitted. "Jaden and you taught me more than I ever taught him." "We learn from each other," the grandmother said wisely. "That's how the world should work." The night wore on, and at one point Jaden was called to make a speech. He was reluctant, but the guests insisted. He stood up, holding a glass of juice — he didn't drink alcohol — and looked at the people gathered there. "I'm not very good with words," he began, "but I'll try." He looked at Emma and William. "Emma, when I met you, you were a scared girl stuck in the mud. But I saw something in you that day. I saw strength. I saw determination. You just needed someone to remind you of that. I'm happy I could be that person. And I'm even happier seeing you today, standing strong, married to a man who loves you, living the life you deserve." He turned to Catherine. "Mrs. Montgomery, you changed my life in ways I can't even explain. You gave me opportunities, yes, but more important than that, you believed in me. You treated me not like a charity project, but like a person worthy of respect, and that made all the difference." His voice faltered slightly, but he continued. "I come from a place where people often tell us we're not good enough, that because of where we were born, we don't deserve to dream. But you and Emma showed me that's a lie. You showed me we all have worth. We all deserve opportunities." He looked at all those present. "This clinic we opened, these social programs Mrs. Montgomery created, they're not charity. They're justice. They're giving people what they've always deserved to have. And I hope every person here understands that. That each of us has the power to change someone's life. Sometimes it's something big, like paying for surgery or college, but sometimes it's something small like a smile, a word of encouragement, an act of kindness." He raised his glass. So, I'd like to make a toast, not just to Emma and William, but to all of us, so that we never forget the importance of reaching out to others, so that we never forget that we are all connected, all equal, all worthy of love and respect. Cheers, everyone responded, raising their glasses. The rest of the evening passed in an atmosphere of joy and celebration. When the party was winding down, Emma called everyone for one last dance. Even people who didn't know how to dance joined the dance floor. Catherine danced with a smile on her face. She looked around and saw happy faces, people who had become family not by blood, but by choice. Jaden danced with Sophia, making her laugh with his clumsy steps. Tyler and Ethan were playing in the corner, already tired. Jaden's grandmother was sitting down but clapping to the rhythm of the music. It was a perfect scene, not because it was luxurious or impressive, but because it was genuine. It was love in its purest form. When the last song ended and guests began to leave, Catherine sat on a garden bench just enjoying the moment. Jaden approached and sat beside her. "Tired?" he asked. "Exhausted," Catherine replied, "but happy." They sat in silence for a moment, just watching the stars. "Mrs. Montgomery," Jaden finally said, "I never asked you this, but I always wanted to know. Why did you do all this? For me? For my siblings? Was it just because I saved Emma?" Catherine thought carefully before answering. "In the beginning, maybe it was out of gratitude," she admitted, "but it quickly became more than that. You saved me too, Jaden. You saved me from an empty life, from an existence without purpose. Before meeting you and your family, I had everything but nothing. Now I understand what truly matters." "And what matters?" Jaden asked. "Connection," Catherine replied. "Love, purpose, making a difference in people's lives. Those are the things that matter. Not money, not status, not power. But how we use what we have to help others." Jaden nodded, understanding. "You know," he said, "when I was little, before my grandmother got sick, she used to tell me something. She said the world was divided into two types of people, those who build bridges and those who build walls." "Your grandmother is wise," Catherine commented. "She is," Jaden agreed. "And I think about that every day. That day in the mud, I could have walked right by. I could have thought it wasn't my problem. But my grandmother always taught me to build bridges, to connect with people, no matter who they are." "And you built one," Catherine said. "You built a bridge between two completely different worlds and changed so many lives in the process. Mine, Emma's, so many people in the community who now have access to the clinic." "It wasn't just me," Jaden protested. "It was you too. It was Emma. It was my grandmother. It was everyone who believed we could do better." Catherine smiled. "I think you're right." They sat there in silence for a few more minutes, just enjoying the quiet night. Then Jaden stood up. "I need to go," he said. "I have patients early tomorrow." "You always have patients early," Catherine said, standing up too. "Yeah," Jaden laughed, "but I wouldn't trade it for anything." They hugged, a long, tight hug. They didn't need to say anything more. Everything had already been said. When Jaden left, Catherine stayed there a little longer. She thought about how her life had changed, how a rainy afternoon, a moment of terror when her daughter was stuck in the mud, had turned into the best thing that could have happened. She had lost a husband she had never truly loved. She had lost superficial friends who had never cared about her. She had lost an empty and meaningless lifestyle. But she had gained a family. She had gained purpose. She had gained the satisfaction of knowing she was making a difference in the world. And in the end, Catherine realized it wasn't her who had saved Jaden. It was Jaden who had saved her. Years had passed since that wedding day. Jaden's clinic had grown and expanded, serving more and more people. Tyler became a respected engineer, designing quality, affordable housing. Sophia was a teacher beloved by her students. Ethan was finishing his medical residency. Emma and William had 2 children, and she continued her work as a psychologist, now focused on low-income families. Catherine had become a reference in corporate social responsibility. She gave lectures, wrote articles, inspired other entrepreneurs to use their wealth for good. But most importantly, she was happy, genuinely happy. One day she went to visit Jaden's clinic. It was a normal workday and the waiting room was full of people. "Mrs. Montgomery," the receptionist greeted her. "Dr. Jaden is with a patient, but I think he can take a break to speak with you." "No need," Catherine said. "I just came to look around, see how things are going." She walked through the halls, observing. Patients being treated with care and attention. Dedicated physical therapists helping people regain their mobility, their independence. In one of the rooms, she saw Jaden working with a young child who had difficulty walking. He was on the floor, at the child's level, encouraging her to take one more step. "Come on, champ," Jaden said. "Just one more, you can do it." The child took another step, and Jaden celebrated as if it were the greatest achievement in the world. The child's mother was crying with joy. Catherine watched the scene and felt her heart warm. That boy she had first seen covered in mud, scared but determined, had become an incredible man, a dedicated professional, a community leader, but above all, a kind person. When Jaden finished the session and left the room, he saw Catherine. "Mrs. Montgomery," he smiled. "What a nice surprise." "Hi, Jaden." Catherine hugged him. "Just came to see how you're doing." "I'm good," Jaden replied. "Busy, but good." "I saw you with that little girl," Catherine said. "She reminded me of someone." "Who?" "You," Catherine said. "At her age. Determined, hard-working, with a bright future ahead." Jaden smiled. "Her name is Mason. Her family didn't have money for treatment, but we're taking care of her for free. She's making great progress." "Just like you did," Catherine said. "Thanks to you," Jaden replied. "No," Catherine shook her head. "Thanks to you, I just provided the tools. You did the hard work." They talked for a few more minutes until Jaden had to return to see another patient. Catherine left the clinic with a smile on her face. As she drove back home, she passed by the square where Jaden used to sing. Now there were other children there, also singing, also trying to earn a few dollars. Catherine stopped the car and got out. She went up to the children and talked to them. She asked their names, their stories, and then she did something she would never have done years before. She took out a business card and gave it to the oldest child. "If you want to study, call me," she said. "I'll see what I can do to help." The child looked at the card, then at Catherine, eyes wide. "Really?" she asked. "Really?" Catherine confirmed. She returned to the car, but before getting in, she took one last look at the square, at the children, at the people rushing by, at the life happening around her. And she smiled, because she had learned an important lesson. A lesson that Jaden and his family had taught. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how many companies you own, how big your bank account is. In the end, what matters is what you do with what you have, how you use your position, your privilege, your resources to help others. And Catherine knew she would spend the rest of her life doing exactly that. That evening she had dinner with Emma, William, and the children. They laughed, told stories, enjoyed their time together. "Mom," Emma said at one point, "you seem different today." "Different how?" "I don't know," Emma thought. "Lighter, happier." Catherine smiled. "I think I finally understood," she said. "Understood what?" "The meaning of all this," Catherine replied, gesturing vaguely. "Of life, of purpose, of why we're here." "And what is the meaning?" Emma asked curiously. "Each other," Catherine said simply. "We are here for each other, to help, to support, to love. It doesn't matter where we come from or where we're going. What matters is what we do along the way." Emma held her mother's hand. "You learned well, Mum." "I had good teachers," Catherine replied, thinking of Jaden, of his grandmother, of everyone who had touched her life and transformed it. Later, when Catherine was alone in her room, she looked out the window at the city below. Millions of lights, millions of lives, each with their own story. And she thought of the boy who had run through the mud to save a girl he didn't even know. She thought of how that simple act of kindness had created ripples that kept expanding, touching more and more lives. She thought of Jaden's grandmother, who raised 4 children alone and taught them values that no money can buy. She thought of Emma, who turned her own pain into purpose, dedicating her life to helping other children. She thought of Tyler, Sophia, and Ethan, each doing their part to make the world a little better. And she thought of herself, of the woman she was before and the woman she became. And she knew without a shadow of a doubt that this transformation had been the greatest gift of her life. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Was there anything that touched you especially? Do you think Catherine made the right decisions? We'd love to read your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories we'll bring. Thank you so much for your company.